Good morning, everyone. My name is Benediction. Obviously, with the city of
We need it louder. We need it louder. Can you turn the speaker up? I can turn it up.
Honoring those that gave all up their lives that are listed behind me on the Lincoln Park War Memorial. So if everyone would please rise. I'm invited the Reverend from St. Michael's to come with our invocation. So, Reverend.
Thank you so much, Tom. As we gather today to commemorate the women and men who have died to protect our freedoms, we recall the scripture that says, "There is no greater love than this, than to lay down one's life for a friend." Let us pray. God of all peace and God of all power, we come before you today knowing you are the source of the greatest love. It is the power of love that breaks open our hearts to receive your gift of divine love. Emboldened by that gift, many brave heroes who faithfully served our nation laid down their lives for us. There is no greater gift. We are humbled to be counted among their friends. And we ask you, Creator of all, to let these flags that boldly fly tell of the glory of the gift of love to you. Grant to them your mercy and the light of your presence, and give to all of us such a commitment to liberty that we will not rest until everyone experiences its blessings and embraces its responsibilities. May these flags we honor in their name be a rousing call for peace in our land. God of peace, hear us. God of power, save us. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend. Now, if we could now all join in with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah, everyone, please be seated. Again, welcome. We have several dignitaries that have taken the time out to be with us today. I see Cary of Clementi, our state representative, is with us today. So, Cary, thank you for coming. I know that there's been some illness in your family, and it's a great sacrifice for you to be here. So we appreciate that greatly. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for our state representative. And we have several representatives of Lincoln Park Council that are here. We have Councilman Michael Higgins, we have Councilman Larry Kelsey, Councilwoman Tracy Dupre, and we have Councilwoman Maureen Tobin that are here. Did I miss anyone? Okay, and representing on the national or exchange side, or the Mission District, or the Lincoln Park Exchange Club, we have the current president of the district, Maureen Tobin. And we have Jennifer Sweeney, who represents the national board that will be with us, and she's going to be our keynote speaker a little bit later on. Jennifer is a regional vice president representing the Michigan District, Indiana, and Ohio, West Virginia. So it's an honor for them to be here with us. And we also have the president of the Lincoln Park Exchange Club with us today, Chuck Persinger. And then Lincoln Park Exchange Club members, you stand up so everyone else knows who you are. These are the people responsible for putting the field of flags up, and so thank you to them. And our last thank you goes to Don Belinsky, who's giving up his Sunday to film this for us, because not everybody during these times is able to be with us And this way it's preserved, especially when we read off the 120 names at the end of our program here. Now, Lincoln Park next month will be celebrating its 100th year of existence. It became a village in 1921, became a city in 1925, but this will be 100 years. And in those 100 years, there's been a lot of sacrifices that have been made by the people, soldiers representing, leaving from Lincoln Park and then defending our freedom, whether it be in World War I, World War II, the Korean conflict, the Vietnam War, or the operation that were done in Iraq and Afghanistan. All of those had those gentlemen had one thing in common, is they left an address in Lincoln Park and they did not return due to services. Some are buried overseas, some are buried at sea, some are still missing. But they all share the common thing that they left here. They had girlfriends, they had first jobs, they had first kisses, they had pets, parents, brothers and sisters, lives that they left behind that were put on hold so that we could remain free. And through everything, that is what we need to remember today, that they sacrificed their lives so that we could remain free. And we have a little bit of a program today, and we have several people to hear from. I'm going to start with the Exchange Club President, Chuck Persinger. So Chuck.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank you all for coming on out on a beautiful Sunday morning. This is a high honor for me to even speak with you guys about this, but this is something we try to do at least once a year. It's always that's exciting to drive by. It's a wonderful thing. So, it's good.
And before I forget, I was told to make a special announcement that the parade will be returning next year. That's a guarantee. And usually this event would follow the parade, which would be coming right down 4th Street. So the hands of the city has advised me that the parade will be coming on next year. That's a good thing. Now we'll hear from our Michigan District President, Maureen Tobin, also Councilwoman Maureen Tobin, one of many hats.
Good morning, everybody. I want to thank everybody for coming out. I'm going to read a poem for you. Before I start, I want to say that the sacrifices that these men and women have given for our freedom should never go unnoticed, and by your representation here today, honoring their memory is something that is coming across the entire United States. There's many heartfelt tears involved with these people in their passing and what they did for us in their service, and I just want to say that I respect them and I am grateful for everything that they have given us. I do not know your name, nor for which battle you died. I do not know your home and the tears that were cried. I do not know where you rest, nor the promises broken. I do not know your uniform and your fears unspoken. But I know your spirit exists, that your courage is admired, and your sacrifice is honored by each soul that is inspired. And I offer you from my heart, thank you to Guardians Unknown for offering yourself for all of us, that we may keep freedom our home. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. That was very nice. Representative Clementi, would you care to come forward and have a few words?
Thank you, Mayor Carnes, and thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We need to remember, and I think that's what happens to me every time I see this field of flags when I come down 4th Street, is remember. This morning when I got up and put on my flag today, I was remembering two people very dear to me that are veterans. My father was in the Army, and my father-in-law was in the Marines. And we are blessed. We are so blessed to have these people that have gone to places and seen things that we will never see, but we have freedom because of them. And we need to thank them and remember them. So thank you very much for doing this, the Exchange Club. It really puts a spotlight on every flag is a person, and there's so many more people that have lost their lives for us. So thank you.
Thank you, Kara. That's we appreciate that. Our U.S. Congresswoman Debbie Dingell gives her regrets that she's not able to be here. She was going through some health issues, so she's not able to be. But she is with us in spirit. And there is we had the parade, and the first time that we did this field, the people marching in the parade would have one of these flags and march down and then place them in the field. And we have a great photo of Representative John Dingell, who now the parade is named from, and Debbie planting one of the flags. So that's something that we will cherish, and our hope goes out to her for a speedy recovery. At this point, we have Jennifer Sweeney, who is our Regional Vice President for the Exchange Club. What a Regional Vice President does is sits on the National Board of Directors, and she has her, she's one of 11, I believe, and takes part in all of the activities and makes the rules and laws that all exchange members live by. I first met Jennifer when she was a secretary in the Saginaw Exchange Club, and she's been a very active member since that time, and is a proponent of everything that is good in the exchange and everything that is fun in the exchange. So Jennifer's going to be our keynote speaker. So Jennifer, please.
Thank you, Tom. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you for having me here today. It's an honor to witness and be a part of this special event that you have here to service our fallen heroes. For the second year in a row, Memorial Day looks a little different than in years past. In many cases, our backyard barbecues and get-togethers are replaced by video chats and other marvels of modern technology. Still, we hold on to some semblance of what life was and what we know it will return to be. And the memories and emotions this day brings are always the same. For countless families across the nation, Memorial Day is a stark and often painful reminder of those who were never afforded the opportunity to be honored as veterans for their service to our country. Their sacrifice is a true expression of selfless service, one that no one would pick for themselves. Whether they volunteered at a time of war, served during peacetime, or never expected to wear our nation's uniform until their draft card arrived, they represent the best America has to offer. We feel their loss, roaming the sacred hills of Arlington National Cemetery and in other final resting places around the world. Too many mothers, fathers, siblings, and children feel the immense weight of seeing an empty chair year-round. For them, Memorial Day brings to the forefront what is always operating in the background. Sending off a loved one so they can serve our country and our citizens is a surreal experience. There are conflicting emotions of fear and pride present in the minds of both service members and their families. I know this experience all too well. My daughter's currently serving in the U.S. Navy in Okinawa, Japan, and my son is in his second week of boot camp in Illinois. Like any other send-off, you hold them tight, you tell them you love them, and watch them head out until they're no longer in sight. But what makes sending a loved one off to war is very different, is the all too real possibility that a uniformed military officer and chaplain may show up at your doorstep to deliver devastating news. This will be the 20th year we've been at war, longer than any American conflict that came before. About 2.7 million Americans have served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and over half of them deployed more than once. Those who returned are now our community members, neighbors, and friends. In fact, I'm confident if you take time to learn about any veteran where you live, you'll be floored by the stories of service and sacrifice known only to those who witnessed it firsthand. Then there are the unbelievably brave accounts of heroes who can no longer speak for themselves. It's up to us to not only tell their stories, but to honor their service and memory by ensuring their families and survivors are cared for. For instance, Army Sergeant First Class Alwyn Cash will become the first black service member to receive the Medal of Honor for actions in Iraq or Afghanistan. Sergeant Cash died on November 8, 2005, 22 days after his Bradley fighting vehicle struck a roadside bomb in Iraq. It was the 35-year-old's second combat deployment to Iraq since the 2003 invasion. The explosion that rocked the Bradley ruptured its fuel cell, engulfing the heavily fortified vehicle and its occupants in flames. Not long after that, enemy bullets rained down on their position. But that did not stop Sergeant Cash from acting to save his soldiers. Drenched in fuel, he pulled the driver, who was still on fire, from a burning vehicle. Once those flames were put out, he returned to the Bradley, only to have fire catch on his gas-soaked uniform. By the time he got each of the 6 other soldiers out alive, more than 70% of his body was covered in second and third degree burns. Despite all of this, he insisted on being the last person on a medical evac helicopter. 4 of those soldiers ended up making the ultimate sacrifice. Along with Sergeant First Class Cash, they joined the rank of heroes taken from us far too soon. It is impossible to know what was going through his mind during those critical moments following the attack. But we may catch a glimpse from the words of former Captain Flo Grober, a Medal of Honor recipient who in Afghanistan in 2012 put himself between a suicide bomber and his soldiers. Thankfully, Captain Grober survived as the vest exploded and the terrorist was pushed away from the formation. He said at that time, "In combat, there may be a moment where you have to make a decision that will more than likely dictate whether or not you live or die. When you are willing to put yourself in front of that bullet, in front of that suicide bomber, in front of that mortar, in front of anything that's going to kill you for your men, that's love." We may not know what was going through his mind, but we know Sergeant First Class Alwyn Cash loved his soldiers. The harsh reality of war and military service in general is not everyone will make it home. America's heroes didn't die for race or religion. They died for didn't die for race or region. They died for the ideals enshrined in our Constitution. They sacrificed so we could continue to have freedom from tyranny, freedom of a religion, all religions, the right to vote, and the idea that nothing infringes on those rights which belong to us all. We must never lose sight of our common humanity, our common values, and our common decency. From 13 colonies came one country, one people. We must strive to find the beauty in our differences instead of fear, listen instead of reacting, getting there, and reach out instead of recoiling. It's up to us, all of us, to honor the memory of heroes no longer with us and what they died for. And let us strive to live up to the example set by such selfless patriots each and every day. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I can tell you is I used to be a regional vice president. I never made a speech like that. That was very nice. I'm going to go off of the program for just a second. I noticed Aaron Bartel is in the audience. Aaron has a program that's called Running to Honor, and I would love him to come up and just say a few words about when he's up. So Aaron, I am putting you on the spot, but it is a fantastic program that everyone needs to know a little bit more about. So, Aaron?
Thank you, Mayor Carnes. Yes, you did put me on the spot, but that's okay. I enjoy speaking about this topic. My name is Aaron Bartel. I'm here from the city of Lincoln Park, of course. This is where I grew up, and I spent 6 years in the Army, 2 years in Iraq, and I lost a lot of soldiers in Iraq, and I came back, and one of the things I decided to focus on was just trying to keep their memory alive. You know, after they pass away, no one talks about them anymore except when Memorial Day comes around. And I think Memorial Day is every day for some of us, and we should think about these soldiers each and every day, not in a sad way, but in a happy way, that they were willing to sacrifice their lives for freedom and for us. So like the mayor said, I run an organization called Running to Honor. A lot of people think that, it involves running, and it started out with running. I run carrying a flag, and the flag has names of all the soldiers that I lost on it. But I've also transformed it into a 501c3 nonprofit, and every year we have a walk or run at Heritage Park in Taylor. It's coming up on July 31st this year, and we just walk 3.1 miles, or run if you want, and we have pictures of all of our fallen soldiers out there, and we walk to honor them and take time to say their names, just like the mayor's going to say here very shortly, all the names of our fallen here from Lincoln Park. And we just try to keep their memory alive, because these soldiers, they actually die twice. They die when they physically died, and then they die again when people stop saying their names. So as long as we continue to say their names, we educate our children about the importance of Memorial Day, and we never forget that freedom is never free. That's the best thing we can do. So that's my message here to you today, and it's a really special event. I'm glad it's being put on. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. If the Bartel name seems familiar to you, his grandmother was a long-time city clerk, and her favorite thing in all of the world was to put up freedom shrines in all of the different schools where you had all the historical documents. We're going to, one more thing about Aaron. You may notice behind me that there are 3 names that have been recently added to the names of those that gave their lives in the war in Vietnam. And Aaron was instrumental in having this done. And then he was a big proponent of making sure and getting this right. So especially for those 3 young men. And at that time, there was also another name that was added to the those that gave their lives in World War II, which was Clyde V. Liddell. And then you'll notice that there's a new, what is a new name up front, Austrian M. Vaughn, but in reality, his name was up on the monument in error for all of these years, since 1948. His middle initial was listed as N, and we finally got it right to where it's here. Each of the flags, each of the 120 young men that are on the War Memorial behind me have a tag that is on the flag among these 120 flags that are out there. On the tag, it says what branch of the service they were from. It says what their rank was, what their address, where they lived at the time that they perished, and it also says how they came to meet their end, and if possible, we have the information on where they were to be buried, where they were buried. Some are in France, and it's, as I said before, some were lost. To the best of our ability, that's what we have. If anyone has more information, or the family member because we have taken all these tags and they're going to be in the Historical Museum as a record. So if anyone has more information, we'll be glad to hear from it. What we're going to do is read off all of the 120 names. After each name, we will have a ringing of the bell, and we'll continue all the way through until we've gone through all 120. If there is anyone in the audience after that fact that has special information, stories, something that they would like to share about one of the officers, soldiers that are on the wall, we'll have time for that. So, and I will also invite, as we do this, we're going to start off with the Exchange Club President Chuck Persinger reading off the first 10 names. But I would encourage those that if anyone would like to read off 5 of the names, that we'll just, after the first 10 are done, it just come up and then we'll go through. Everyone that would like to read some of the names off will be given that opportunity, because this is a communal loss for the city of Lincoln Park. All of us have lost, whether it's something that what they could have done, how their lives would have progressed, and what their future was, but they ended up giving their future for us. So, just a word on the Field of Flags. Colonial Flag Company, who manufactures all these flags, started the healing fields as a direct result of the towers that the New York World Trade Towers that were taken down, and the plane that crashed in Pennsylvania. Everyone that lost their lives on 9/11. But the next year they had a field of flags for that, and then they determined that it would work for other reasons, for child abuse prevention and such, for the victims of that. But since 2009, Lincoln Park has chosen to honor those that are on the war memorial here by having a flag in their honor. So at this point, actually, Chuck, I'm going to call you up, but I'm going to, I think, Maureen, would you be able to help us out? Or actually, Jennifer, why don't you, if you can come up, you're going to grab the gavel, and then after each name is read. Okay. Now, Lincoln Park became a village in 1921 and was part of Ecorse Township before. So in World War I, there were at least 2 members that were killed. But we're going to start off with all of those from Ecorse Township that were killed in World War I. Now specifically, we have Roy B. Saliot, who was killed in World War I, and the American Legion Post in Ecorse was named for them, and also the VFW Post is named for Benjamin Goodell. He's from Ecorse, but he was the VFW Post in 1930, and Lincoln Park was named for them. So we'll move to the members. There are 120 names. Of the 120 names, 85 were lost in World War II. 11 were lost in the Korean War. 23 in Vietnam, and 1 in Iraqi freedom. So, Chuck.
Raymond Allure. Howard E. Blanks. James Bortle. Burr Brayman Jr. Guy A. Bryant. Harold K. Caldwell. Darrell S. Cole. Carl E. Caldwell. William A. Cooper. Donald H. Croy.
Michael,
Albert J. Sismadia. William Daly. Herbert C. Davis. Albert J. Dawson. And Marvin J. Drake. Thank you. Oh, Dwayne L. Eaton. I said Marvin Drake. Thank you for your gift of our freedom and wonderful country.
Kara? Sure.
Leo J. Albert, Adam Isak, Harold H. Fallis, Leroy H. Falou, James B. Foodie, Robert B. Frazier.
Thank you, Maureen.
Harry L. Frazier, Harry R. Gould, James H. Genshaw, Floyd C. Hansen, Richard P. Harper, Thomas Harvey.
Thank you. Anyone else? Willard O. Helmer. Leslie M. Hendricks. Charles M. Hentz. Charles R. Heiner. Robert B. Holliday. Louis G. Horton. James House Jr. Steve Karwacki. Gregory Kelly Porras. Charles E. Kinsugar Jr. George B. Cavell. Raymond B. Kleiber. Raymond J. Klisch. Nicholas Levernach. Alexander Levy. Frank Lucas Jr. Julius R. Lucier. Clyde V. Lydell. Donald J. McKenzie. Milo R. Mann. Joseph Marchand. Herman D. McCrae. Gerald D. McFall. James M. McGuire. Russell H. McKinney Jr. Vernon L. Mead. James Metzger. Donald L. Miller. Manuel A. Menchef. Walter Mitchell. Clyde L. Moncrief. Howard J. Moore. William L. Morris. Thomas A. Novak. Manly L. Paris. John Pogowski. Stephen G. Pogan Jr. Christopher Pullman. Jack J. Poppin. Peter Quinn. Oliver Randall. Henry E. Roger. Lewis N. Rose, Thomas C. Sears, Richard Shelters, Russell C. Sheridan, Joseph C. Shovely, Claude E. Smith, Earl C. Smith, Willard A. Smith, James L. Sweeney, Freeman A. Trudeau, Arthur M. Vaughn, James R. Weber, Ralph E. Weber, Joseph V. Buchanan, Walter L. Zadnowski. These next are from the Korean War. Stephen A. Abbott Jr., Peter J. Buffa Jr., Cecil F. Jordan, Thomas Caradima, Edward M. Lineker, Donald McGowan Jr., James L. McGuffin, Hubert A. Meredith, Ernest R. Rouleau, Edgar L. Shadrick, Robert A. Ward. The next names are from the Vietnam War. Henry P. Baldwin, Ronald L. Beckett, Thomas W. Bickford, Thomas J. Bradford, William V. Clark, Theodore Kilvesey, James C. Durham Jr., John Foldberry Jr., John Francavilla, Robert G. Gwynn, John F. Higgins, Richard C. Kaminsky, Gary W. Klein, Gerald A. Kozakowski, Merle A. Meadows, Richard A. Nelson, Eli W. Nichols, Vaughn T. O'Neill, Paul Peterson, Paul E. Preteron, James W. Powers, Richard L. Rushlow, Kenneth E. Treadway, and Craig, and this is from Iraqi Freedom, Craig S. Frank. Thank you, Jennifer. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to say a few words about any of our folks here?
I just wanted to talk a little bit more about Sergeant Richard Leonard Rushlow. And I'm going to share this story with you just to kind of get you to think about, what you can do to make a difference. I'm involved in a lot of charitable veterans things, and one of the things people ask me most is, what can I do, Aaron? How can I get back to veterans or whatever? And I tell them, you don't always have to do something for veterans. You could do anything. You could see trash on the ground and pick up the trash off the ground, and now you made a difference. Maybe an animal is not going to eat that trash and die. You're going to make the area look better. So you can do anything. So when you think, what can I do to make a difference? You can do anything. You just have to think about it. So in regards to this newer plaque here that's gold that has Thomas Bickford, Eli Nicholas, and Richard Rushlow, about 4 or 5 years ago, I went to my daughter's parent-teacher conferences over here at John Paul II Catholic, formerly Christ the Good Shepherd, on Riverbank Street. And the assistant principal there, Walt Coles, had pulled me aside and said, "Hey, Aaron, I know you do a lot of veterans-related stuff, and I want to share this story with you." Back in the 80s, so this guy had been teaching for quite a while. Back in the 80s, he had a student in his class, and she just briefly mentioned around Memorial Day when he was teaching social studies, she mentioned that one of her family members, Richard Rushlow, was killed in action in Vietnam. And he wasn't listed on the wall here. And she didn't know why, and that's kind of as far as the conversation went, but the seed was already planted in Walt Cole's head at that point. And he had done some research on his end to see if he could figure out, he talked to some city officials at the time to find out what we needed to do to get Richard Rushlow's name up here on the wall, and unfortunately his attempts were unsuccessful. So you fast forward about 30 years, and here I am at the parent-teacher conferences, and he pulls me aside and he talks to me and he says, "Hey, is there anything you can do to get Richard Rushlow's name up here? I don't have any contact with his family, but it just bothers me. It's bothered me for 30 years that I know that there's a soldier that was killed in action in Vietnam, and he's not represented anywhere for whatever the reason is. He's not represented, and I kind of feel like he's forgotten." So I started doing some research on my own. I started Googling. I started contacting everybody online I could find with the last name of Rushlow. I talked to some of the local veterans organization, the curator over here at the Historical Society, Mr. Day, and through those efforts, and there were many people, I certainly am not going to take sole credit for this, but there are many people that made this happen here, but I just decided to dig in and research and really push that we need Richard Rushlow up here on this memorial. And through the process of looking for Richard Rushlow, we also found out Thomas Bickford and Eli Nicholas were also from Lincoln Park and killed in action in Vietnam, and they weren't represented as well. So through this effort, and the efforts of many people behind the scenes, and Mr. Day, the curator, Mayor Carnes, we fixed something that wasn't right, and now these three gentlemen, including Mr. Rushlow, will be represented at our memorial forever. And we actually, 2 years ago, were able to get in touch with his family, and one of his family members was able to be here and speak a little bit more about him. So the message I'm sharing with you today is not that Aaron's this great person and does things for everybody. I'm a normal person just like you. I'm just telling you, if you want to make a difference in the world, whether it's picking trash up off the ground, trying to correct something that's not right on a Veterans Memorial, or doing anything unrelated to veterans, all you need to do is just think about what you want to do and take action and do it, and you can make this, you can make the world a better place. So thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Speaking of Mr. Day, he is in the background there. Jeff, why don't you come up here for a moment?
Why you are all of that?
Well, I understand that, but you have this in your head. Just a little bit about the names that were on here. I mean, you're talking about Peter Buffa with Mr. Trinsky. Yeah. Well, I'm just so we'll do it this way then. So not to put you on the spot. There were names that through this were sometimes when a soldier is missing in action, or say it was a sailor that was on a ship that was listed as missing, they didn't get the notice right away, and it didn't get on the list for this because they're declared dead like a year later. And that's the case with Peter J. Buffa that was on this case. Now, Joe Terinsky was somebody that's been with he recently passed, but he's been somebody that's been with the Historical Museum, all things Lincoln Park, and has been his efforts for several years to get Peter J. Buffa that was on here. And then he finally was successful, and he was added. And the same as it went with Mr. Bickford, Mr. Nicholas, Mr. Rushlow here, was also with Clyde Glidell, who was, I think, that he was also a sailor that was missing off of the ship. And then that is finally has been righted.
Yeah, because of the family, they contacted his family. Clyde's family contacted us about 2 years ago, and then we were able to add the name to the plaque along with the three from Vietnam that were mentioned, and so those four were dedicated just a year ago. Peter Buffa's name has been on the plaque for about 4 or 5 years, maybe or so. Joe Terinsky grew up with Pete Buffa and good friends, played sports, back in the 40s. So they were had a special relationship, and he knew about Pete not surviving, and he was very concerned with the fact that the name was not on the plaque. So Joe initiated that process to get Pete Whiffle's name put on the plaque for the Korean War, which Joe also served in.
Thank you, Jeff. There's great stories with every name that is on this monument. Back in 2009, we left a name off as we were going through this, and it ended up being a friend of mine, Cowell's family, and it was Carl E. Cowell. And in going through, I did just a little research so we can sort of make it right, and found out that Mr. Cowell lived at 1424 Lincoln with his brother Clarence, who was 16, and then his mom and his dad. And then we found that through the census of 1940, and then found out that his enlistment papers, but through it all, he was killed on. It was July 7th of 1944, and it was shot in that process. And when he was in France when it happened. But I found a little bit for him that had a little picture, and then mentioned that he was married to a young lady by the name of Geraldine. And going through the ancestry, I found out later on that there was a Geraldine Caldwell 5 months later that entered the WACs as the Women's Army Corps as a widow. And I haven't been able to confirm it, but it's in my mind that Carl's wife, after he was killed, decided to devote her life to the Army Corps, the Female Army Corps. Well, there's any number of things. There is Mr. Eaton that is on here. Dwayne Eaton had a brother that lived over on here on Stewart, and was always telling the story of how he died. And his brother was headed over to the Pacific, but they were flying from St. Louis to California and then make the last jump, and he was killed in a car crash. And we have Thomas Bickford was over here, had just been married 2 months before he lost his wife. I think it was Richard Rushlow, in looking at remembrances, when he left to go to war, he kissed his fiancée goodbye and was walking away, and then paused and walked back to what would have been his future mother-in-law, and said, "I'm not coming back." And so, read through this, walk through the flags, say their names out loud, because in that case, they're never forgotten. And now we're going to end with, I always mess up, so I'm going to read this specifically. Our benediction, Reverend Cary Hildebrandt of the Lincoln Park Presbyterian Church. Reverend?
Let us pray. God of all life, as we remember those who gave of their lives for others, may we be cognizant of how we can honor their memory through our own service and sacrifice. May we carry a spirit of generosity in all of our interactions. May we have a spirit of courage in the face of difficulties. May we endeavor to have the compassion that this world needs. May we care for others with a sense of duty and purpose. May all the lives who have gone before us, that we honor this day, embolden us to serve our community, to work for the common good, and be a presence of peace. God of all creation, go with us this day and every day, and may you instill in us a sense of service in everything we do. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend. She had to rush over from conducting her service to be here and with us today, and we appreciate that greatly. At 3 o'clock on Memorial Day, there is what I didn't know is that everyone is supposed to pause and take a moment to remember everyone that has given their lives for their country through the military. We are not obviously at 3 o'clock, but I would like to end this with all of us taking a quiet moment to remember those not only that are on the wall behind me, but through all of the conflicts that our country has been, so that we could live free. So please, just a moment. Thank you, and thanks to the Exchange Club for putting up the Field of Flags, for everyone that has had anything to do with either the upkeep of the memorial or to make this event a success today. Thank you, and have a good morning.